Please don't hang up. Caleb's voice was so quiet I almost didn't recognize it. I sat up in bed before I even understood what was happening. My phone pressed too hard against my ear, the blue light showing 2:17 a.m. on the screen. For a second, all I heard was his breathing. Slow, uneven, like he had called me and then forgotten how words worked. Caleb. My room was dark except for the strip of street light cutting across the floor. Hey, what's going on? Another pause. Too long. My stomach tightened in a way that felt almost physical. Caleb Brooks had been my best friend since sophomore year of college. He was the guy who could turn a dead room into a party, the guy who made cashiers laugh, the guy who once convinced an entire bar that it was my birthday just to get us free fries. Caleb didn't call at 2 in the morning sounding like this. He didn't sound small. He didn't sound lost. Can you come over? That was it. No explanation. No joke to soften it. No, bro, sorry, weird night. Just that. I was already out of bed, grabbing jeans from the chair. Yeah, of course. Are you hurt? No. His answer came too fast, and somehow that made it worse. I shoved my feet into sneakers without socks. Are you alone? Silence again. Then, yeah. My chest pulled tight. I'm leaving now. Ethan. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. Yeah. His breath shook once. Barely. Don't tell Mason. Something about that hit me harder than the call itself. Mason was our loud friend, the fixer, the one who turned every problem into a group chat and 3 bad opinions. Caleb not wanting him to know meant this wasn't a flat tire or a drunk mistake. This was something Caleb didn't want witnesses for. I won't. Outside, Chicago felt half asleep and wet. The kind of late-night rain that made every traffic light look smeared across the windshield. I drove 10 miles over the limit and still felt like I was moving too slow. My mind kept trying to make it normal. Maybe he had a fight with his ex. Maybe he lost another job lead. Maybe he just couldn't sleep. Best friend showed up. That was all this was. That was what I kept telling myself. But my hands were tied on the steering wheel the whole way. Caleb lived on the 3rd floor of an old brick building in Logan Square with a front door that stuck when it rained. He buzzed me in without saying anything. When I reached his apartment, the door was unlocked. I hated that. I pushed it open slowly. Caleb. The place was dark. Not movie dark. Real dark. Curtains closed. Dishes in the sink. Hoodie thrown over the back of a chair. The air too still. Then I saw him. Sitting on the floor beside his bed. Knees pulled up, back against the wall, wearing the same gray sweatshirt he'd had since college. His hair was messy. His face tired in a way I didn't know how to look at. He glanced up at me, and my heart dropped. Not because he looked dramatic. Because he didn't. He looked empty. Like someone had turned the volume down on him. I shut the door behind me. Hey. He blinked like my voice had to travel a long way to reach him. Hey. I wanted to ask 100 things. What happened? How long have you been sitting here? Did you eat today? Why didn't you call sooner? Instead, I walked over carefully and crouched a few feet away, like sudden movement might scare him off. Do you want water? Caleb shook his head. Food. Another shake. His eyes moved to the floor between us. I didn't know who else to call. There it was. The sentence that went straight through me. My throat tightened before I could stop it. I nodded like it didn't hurt to hear. Like I wasn't suddenly aware of every year we'd spent making jokes, splitting rent on road trips, pretending there were no parts of him I watched too closely. You called the right person. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for 1 second, I forgot how to be normal. I stood, because standing felt safer, and glanced at the chair near his desk. I can sit over there. You don't have to talk. I'll just hang out. I took 1 step. Caleb's hand reached out and caught the sleeve of my hoodie. Not hard. Barely anything. But I stopped like he'd pulled me back with both arms. His fingers stayed there, curled in the fabric. His eyes didn't leave mine. Can you just sit here? His voice broke on the last word. Not over there. I looked down at his hand on my sleeve. Then back at him. My pulse was suddenly too loud. Yeah. I said, softer than I meant to. Yeah, I can sit here. So I did. Right there on the floor beside him, shoulder almost touching his, close enough to feel him breathe, telling myself it was just friendship. And for the first time that night, Caleb didn't let go. By the next morning, Caleb acted like nothing happened. That was almost worse. I woke up on his bedroom floor with my back against the wall, my neck stiff, and his old throw blanket half over my lap. I did not remember him putting it there. The last thing I remembered was him sitting beside me in the dark, his fingers still hooked lightly in my sleeve, both of us quiet enough to hear the radiator clicking. At some point, he must have fallen asleep. At some point, I must have stayed. When I opened my eyes, sunlight was leaking around the curtains, weak and gray, and Caleb was standing in the kitchen like a ghost trying to make coffee. His sweatshirt sleeves were pulled over his hands. His hair stuck up on one side. He looked embarrassed before he even looked at me. You stayed. His voice was rough from sleep. I pushed myself up, pretending my whole body did not hurt. You told me not to sit over there. I took that very seriously. For a second, something almost like a smile moved across his face. Almost. Then it disappeared. Sorry. I hated how fast he said it. Like being sad was rude. Like needing me had been some kind of bad habit. I rubbed my eyes and stood. Do not do that. Caleb stared down into his mug. Do what? Apologize because I showed up. The apartment went quiet again, but not like last night. This quiet had edges. I noticed the sink first. Bowls, cups, a pan with dried noodles stuck to the bottom. Then the coffee table. Unopened mail. A grocery bag with nothing in it but saltines and a receipt. I try not to look too hard. People notice when you notice their mess. Caleb noticed anyway. His jaw tightened. I know. It is bad. It is an apartment. I shrugged, walking to the sink. Apartments get weird. Ethan. What? You do not have to clean. I turned the faucet on before I could overthink it. I am not cleaning. I am aggressively rinsing. That got an actual breath of a laugh out of him. Small. Tired. But real enough that my chest loosened. I washed 2 mugs, then 3 plates, then the pan. Caleb leaned against the counter, watching me like he did not know what to do with his hands. Did you eat yesterday? I kept my voice casual. Too casual. He looked away. There was my answer. I opened his fridge. Half a carton of eggs, 1 orange, mustard, and a takeout box that looked old enough to vote. Cool. Very survivalist. I have protein bars somewhere. That is not food. That is punishment in a wrapper. He leaned his head back against the cabinet, eyes closing for a second. You sound like my mom. Your mom has excellent range. I made eggs because eggs were harder to mess up than feelings. Caleb sat on the counter stool and watched me move around his kitchen like I belonged there. I tried not to think about that. Tried not to think about his blanket on me, his hand on my sleeve, his voice asking me to stay close. Best friend stuff. Normal stuff. Completely normal. Except when I handed him the plate, his fingers brushed mine, and he did not pull away right away. It was only a second, maybe less, but his eyes flicked up to mine, and the room did that thing again. The air thinned. My pulse jumped. Caleb looked down first. Thanks. I cleared my throat. Eat before it gets cold. He took a bite. Then another. I stood across from him pretending not to monitor every movement like an anxious nurse. After 3 bites, he set the fork down. I do not know how to be around people right now. The honesty hit harder than I expected. I leaned against the counter, giving him space even though I wanted to step closer. Then do not be around people. He looked up. What? Be around me. Caleb's face changed, just barely. Like the sentence had landed somewhere soft. I regretted it immediately. Too much. Too honest. I grabbed the empty mug beside him and turned toward the sink. I am already annoying. Low social pressure. Behind me, Caleb was quiet. Then, softer, you are not annoying. I laughed because I had to. You have known me for 7 years. That is legally false. Ethan. The way he said my name made me turn around. His eyes were on me, steady and tired and too open. It is worse when you leave. My hand froze around the mug. The faucet ran between us. I told myself he meant the apartment. The silence. The depression. Anything but me. But Caleb kept looking at me like he knew exactly what he had done, and for once, I had no joke ready. The thing nobody tells you about staying for someone is how fast it becomes a routine. Not dramatic. Not planned. Just little things that start happening until one day your life has a Caleb-shaped space in it. I started stopping by after work. At first, I called it checking in. Then I called it bringing dinner because I accidentally ordered too much. Then I stopped calling it anything at all. 3 nights after that first call, I showed up with Thai food, 2 iced coffees, and a pack of those sour gummy worms Caleb pretended to hate, but always finished. He opened the door wearing sweatpants, a wrinkled t-shirt, and 1 sock. Just 1. I looked down. Bold fashion choice. Caleb followed my gaze like he had forgotten feet existed. Laundry situation is complicated. You have one sock on. Exactly. Complicated. It was the first real joke he had made all week, and I hated how much I wanted to hold on to it. Inside, the apartment looked a little better. Curtains half open. Trash bag by the door. Sink mostly empty. Small victories. Caleb noticed me noticing and gave me a tired look. Do not look proud. It is weird. I lifted both coffees. I am emotionally neutral and heavily caffeinated. He took one, and our fingers brushed again. This time, I was ready for it. Or I thought I was. But his hand was warm, and he held the cup without moving away, thumb resting close to mine. Too close. The hallway light behind me buzzed softly. Neither of us said anything. Then Caleb blinked and stepped back. Food. I nodded too fast. Food. We ate on the couch because his table was covered in mail he was still avoiding. Some old sitcom played on low volume. One we had watched in college when we were broke and sharing a dorm lounge with strangers who microwave fish at midnight. Caleb barely ate, but he ate more than the day before, so I counted it as a win. Halfway through the episode, he shifted closer to grab a napkin from the coffee table. His knee touched mine. He did not move it. I stared at the television like it personally owed me money. You are doing that thing, Caleb murmured. My throat tightened. What thing? The thing where you pretend not to notice something. I laughed once, way too dry. That is vague. I ignore a lot. He turned his head toward me. I could feel him looking before I looked back. His eyes were tired, but clearer tonight. More present. That almost made it worse. You have been acting careful around me. I swallowed. I am trying not to be annoying. You are always annoying. See? Healing. A corner of his mouth lifted, but the joke did not land the way I wanted. The silence after it stretched. Caleb looked down at his hands, twisting the napkin until it tore. I mean it. You do not have to treat me like glass. My chest tightened. I am not. You are. His voice stayed quiet. No anger in it. Just truth. You keep asking before you sit too close. You ask before you turn on lights. You ask before you open a window. It is like you are waiting for me to break. That hit somewhere I was not ready for. I looked away first. I just do not want to make it worse. You do not. The words came quick. Too quick. Caleb seemed surprised by himself. Then his voice dropped. You make it less loud. I stopped breathing for a second. Less loud. I had no idea what to do with that. So I did what I always did. I reached for a joke like a life jacket. Wow. Put that on my birthday card. Caleb did not laugh. That was the problem. He just kept looking at me. Softly. Like I had missed the point on purpose and he knew it. My face got hot. I turned back to the television, but I could still feel him beside me. Too close now. Too quiet. A few minutes later, his head tipped toward my shoulder. I thought he was just tired. Then the weight settled there. Careful at first. Almost asking without words. Every muscle in my body locked. Caleb's hair brushed my jaw. His breathing slowed. I should have moved. I told myself I should have moved. Best friends did not sit there panicking over a shoulder. Best friends did not notice the smell of someone's shampoo or the warmth of their arm through a cotton t-shirt. But Caleb looked peaceful for the first time in days, and I could not make myself take that away from him. Is this okay? His voice was barely above the television. My heart kicked hard. Yeah. It came out rough, so I cleared my throat. Yeah, it is okay. He did not say thank you. He just relaxed a little more against me, like my answer had given him permission to breathe. I stared straight ahead, hands folded so tightly my fingers hurt. Then, slowly, his hand shifted on the couch. His pinky touched mine. Not held. Not exactly. Just rested there, light enough that either of us could pretend it was nothing. And that was the moment I knew I was in trouble. Because I did not move away. And neither did he. The first time Mason noticed, it was because Caleb laughed. Not a huge laugh. Nothing dramatic. Just this quiet little sound from the kitchen while I was trying to convince him that canned soup did not count as a personality. I had come over after work with groceries because apparently I had become the kind of person who bought spinach for another grown man. Caleb was sitting on the counter, bare feet hooked on the cabinet below, watching me struggle with a jar of pasta sauce. You know you can use a towel for grip, right? I shot him a look. I know how jars work. Does the jar know that? I pointed the spoon at him. One more comment, and you are eating dry noodles. He laughed then. Small. Real. It caught me off guard so hard I almost dropped the spoon. Caleb caught that too. His smile faded a little, not gone, just softer. Like he knew why I had frozen. For a second, the kitchen went strangely still. The burner clicked. Rain tapped against the window. My hand was still wrapped around the jar, his eyes still on my face. What? I tried to sound normal. Failed. Caleb looked down, rubbing his thumb along the edge of the counter. Nothing. That is never nothing. His mouth twitched. You looked happy. My chest tightened. Because I opened the sauce? Because I laughed. I did not have a comeback for that. That was the problem with Caleb lately. He kept saying things that sounded simple until they landed inside me and made a mess. I turned back to the stove, because facing boiling water was safer than facing him. Well, yeah, you have an annoying laugh. I missed being annoyed. He went quiet. Too quiet. I glanced over my shoulder. Caleb was watching me with this expression I had not seen before. Not sad. Not exactly grateful. Something warmer and way more dangerous. I missed you too, he murmured. My fingers tightened around the spoon. I was here yesterday. I know. The words sat there between us. I was here yesterday, but that was not what he meant. I knew it. He knew I knew it. Then my phone buzzed on the counter, loud enough to save both of us. Mason's name lit up the screen. Before I could grab it, Caleb leaned over and read the preview. Tell your husband to text me back. Caleb blinked. I snatched the phone so fast I almost knocked over the salt. Mason is an idiot. Caleb's eyebrows lifted. Your husband. He has been calling you that because I keep bailing on plans. For me, I focused very hard on stirring pasta that did not need stirring. You make it sound weird. Is it? I stopped. The spoon scraped the bottom of the pot once, too loud in the small kitchen. Caleb slid off the counter. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just one step closer. Then another. Suddenly, he was beside me, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine when he reached past me to lower the heat. You were about to burn it. His voice was low, almost amused. I looked at the stove. He was right. Of course he was right. Thanks. He did not move away. His hand stayed on the knob for half a second longer than it needed to. His arm was close to mine. Too close. I could smell his laundry detergent, the cheap, clean kind from the corner store. Caleb looked at me, and I made the mistake of looking back. The air changed. I hated that phrase, but that was what happened. The whole apartment seemed to narrow down to the space between us. His eyes dropped for a second. Not far. Just enough to make my heart slam once against my ribs. Then his gaze came back up, slower this time. Ethan. My name sounded different in his mouth. Careful. Almost like a question. Yeah. My voice barely worked. Caleb swallowed. His hand shifted on the counter, fingers almost touching mine. Almost. Do you ever think? The front door buzzed. Both of us jumped like teenagers caught doing something wrong. Caleb stepped back so fast his shoulder hit the cabinet. I grabbed the pot handle even though there was no reason to. The buzzer sounded again. Mason's voice came through the intercom, loud and cheerful, and completely unaware he had just saved me or ruined me. Open up, emotionally married losers. I brought pie. Caleb stared at the door. I stared at Caleb. His face was flushed, just slightly, and I knew mine was worse. He let out a breath that almost became a laugh, but not quite. You should get that. I nodded. Yeah, I should, but neither of us moved for one more second. And that scared me more than the almost. Because whatever Caleb had been about to ask, part of me already knew the answer. Mason walked in like a man who had never once read a room in his life. He carried a grocery store pie in one hand, a six-pack of ginger ale in the other, and the loud confidence of someone who thought every silence needed to be attacked immediately. Wow. He stopped in the doorway, looking between us. Why does it smell like pasta and unresolved tension? I grabbed the pie from him before he could say anything worse. Why are you here? Because you stopped answering the group chat, and Caleb sent one thumbs-up emoji in 9 days, which is basically a hostage signal. Caleb leaned against the counter with his arms folded, trying to look casual. He did not pull it off. His cheeks were still a little pink from whatever had almost happened before the buzzer. Or maybe I was imagining that because my brain had become useless around him. Mason looked at Caleb, then at me, then back at Caleb. His face softened for half a second. You good, man? Caleb nodded too quickly. Yeah, getting there. Mason did not push. For all his noise, he knew when not to. He just set the ginger ale on the counter and clapped his hands once. Cool. Then we eat pie like adults and pretend Ethan does not have the caretaking instincts of a stressed suburban mom. I heard that. You were supposed to. Dinner should have helped. It should have made everything feel normal. 3 friends on a Tuesday night, eating slightly overcooked pasta at Caleb's tiny kitchen table while Mason talked too much about his terrible date with a dental hygienist named Amber. Caleb laughed twice. I counted. I hated that I counted. At one point, Caleb reached for the Parmesan right as I did. Our fingers bumped. It was nothing. It should have been nothing. But he looked at me, and I looked at him, and for one stupid second the whole table disappeared. Then Mason cleared his throat. Loudly. Okay. He pointed his fork between us. What is happening? My stomach dropped. Caleb looked down at his plate. I forced a laugh that sounded fake even to me. Pasta. Conversation. Your ongoing war against silence. Mason did not smile. That was how I knew we were in trouble. No. I mean this. His hand moved between us again. You two are doing that thing where you act normal so aggressively that it becomes suspicious. Caleb's shoulders tensed. I saw it right away. The tiny shift. The wall going up. Mason, I warned. He lifted both hands. I am not being weird. I just care about both of you. And I am trying to figure out if I should be worried, supportive, or buying matching towels. Do not buy towels, Caleb muttered. Mason grinned. So supportive then? Caleb gave a small laugh, but it did not last. His eyes flicked toward me and away again. It is not like that. The words came out quiet. Too quick. Too sharp around the edges. I told myself they should have relieved me. They did not. They landed right in my chest and stayed there. Mason's grin faded. Okay. The rest of the meal got careful after that. Mason changed the subject. Caleb answered when spoken to. I focused on my food like it was a complicated legal document. But the damage was already done. Because suddenly there was a third person in the room, and third people made pretending harder. After Mason left, the apartment felt too quiet. Caleb stood at the sink, rinsing plates we had already rinsed. His movements were stiff, almost angry. I leaned against the counter, giving him space. He did not mean anything by it. Caleb let out a short breath. That is the problem. I frowned. What does that mean? He turned off the faucet and gripped the edge of the sink. For a while, he just stared down at the drain. People are starting to notice. My throat went dry. Notice what? Caleb looked over his shoulder at me. Tired. Scared. Way too honest. Exactly. I had no answer. None that would not expose me. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, then folded it, unfolded it, folded it again. I cannot be someone's project, Ethan. That hurt so fast I almost stepped back. You are not. I know. His voice cracked around the words, and his face tightened like he hated that it did. But sometimes I cannot tell the difference between you helping me because I am your best friend and you staying because... He stopped. My pulse was loud in my ears. Because what? Caleb's eyes held mine for 1 second too long. Then he looked away. Forget it. I wanted to cross the room. I wanted to make him finish the sentence. Instead, I stayed where I was, because Mason's joke was still sitting between us like evidence. Caleb reached for the door, opening it for me before I had even said I was leaving. That was new. That was worse. I stepped into the hallway, pretending my chest did not feel hollow. Behind me, his voice came out softer. Maybe you should not come over tomorrow. I turned back. Caleb would not look at me. And the worst part was, I knew he was not pushing me away because he wanted to. He was pushing me away because someone had finally said the quiet part out loud. I did not go over the next day. That should have made things easier. It did not. I worked from my apartment with my laptop open and the same clip playing on loop for 40 minutes because my brain kept drifting back to Caleb standing by his sink, telling me not to come over like the words hurt him too. By 6, I had checked my phone so many times it started feeling pathetic. No message. No call. Just the group chat. Mason sending a dumb meme about emotionally unavailable men and immediately deleting it, probably because he remembered who his friends were. I told myself space was good. Caleb asked for space. Healthy adults respected space. Healthy adults did not stare at a contact name like it might blink first. At 8:43, my phone finally buzzed. Caleb, did you eat dinner? I stared at it. That was all. For words. Nothing dramatic. Nothing romantic. Still, my chest did that stupid thing again. I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them before settling on. Not yet. You? The typing bubbles appeared, vanished, appeared again. Then, I made toast. I almost smiled. Almost. That is not dinner. A minute passed. Then a photo came through. One sad piece of toast on a paper towel, burned on one corner. Under it, he wrote, Chef Special. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment, and the sound surprised me. Before I could answer, Another message popped up. Caleb, it is worse when you are not here, by the way. My thumb froze above the screen. There it was again. Too direct to hide inside a joke. Too soft to ignore. I called him before I could talk myself out of it. He picked up on the second ring. Neither of us spoke right away. I could hear the low hum of his refrigerator, maybe the television in the background, turned down too far to matter. That is a dangerous thing to text someone, I managed. Caleb let out a quiet breath. Not a laugh. More like he had been holding it in. Yeah, I know. I sat back on my couch, heart beating hard. Are you okay? I do not know. Honest. Tired. Caleb. But I did not want you thinking I meant it yesterday. I swallowed. You did say it. I know. A pause. I meant I was scared. My apartment felt suddenly too still. I looked at the dark window across from me and could see my own reflection, phone pressed to my ear, face too open. Scared of what? Caleb did not answer right away. When he did, his voice sounded closer somehow, like he had moved the phone against his mouth. Of how normal it felt. You being here. Us cooking. Mason making stupid jokes. You looking at me like, he stopped. My grip tightened around the phone. Like what? Like I am not hard to stay for. My chest hurt. Not in the sharp way. In the full way. The kind that made breathing feel complicated. You are not hard to stay for. The silence after that was different. Not empty. Loaded. I heard him shift, maybe sitting down, maybe leaning against the kitchen counter where I had left him the night before. That is the problem, Ethan. His voice got rougher. You say stuff like that, and I cannot tell if you mean it the way I hear it. I closed my eyes. This was the line. I could feel it under my feet. One honest sentence, and everything would change. One joke, and we could pretend a little longer. I chose the coward's middle ground. How do you hear it? Caleb gave a soft, humorless laugh. Do not do that. Do what? Make me say it first. My stomach dropped. I opened my eyes. The room looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Caleb's breathing came through the phone, uneven again, but not like that first night. This was not panic. This was something else. I did not want you to leave, he said quietly. Yesterday, or the night before, or any of the nights before that. I could not move. Caleb. And when Mason joked about us, I freaked out because for 1 second, it did not feel wrong. My throat went dry. He kept going before I could save either of us. It felt real to me. The words hit so hard I had to stand up. I walked 3 steps, stopped in the middle of my living room, then turned around like my body had forgotten what rooms were for. You cannot say that, and then tell me not to come over. I know. His voice cracked a little. That is why I am saying it now. I looked at my keys on the table, then at the door, then back at nothing. Every sensible part of me said to slow down. Caleb was healing. Caleb was vulnerable. We were best friends, and best friends were hard to replace if you ruined them. But then he whispered, I do not want to go back to normal. And that was it. That was the part one could not pretend through. Open your door in 20 minutes, I said. Caleb was quiet for half a second. Then, softer than anything. Okay. I got to Caleb's building in 17 minutes. Not 20. I told myself that did not mean anything. It just meant traffic was light, and I hit every green. It did not mean my hands were shaking when I climbed the stairs. It did not mean I had replayed his words the whole drive until they stopped sounding like words and started feeling like a door opening. It felt real to me. I do not want to go back to normal. His apartment door opened before I knocked. Caleb stood there in a faded Northwestern hoodie, hair damp like he had showered too fast, eyes tired but awake in a way I had not seen in weeks. For a second, neither of us moved. The hallway smelled like someone's burned popcorn. A neighbor's television murmured behind a wall. Everything was painfully normal except for the way Caleb looked at me like I was the thing he had been trying not to want. 17 minutes, he murmured. I blinked. You timed me. His mouth twitched. I was trying not to. That should have made me laugh. Instead, my chest tightened. He stepped back to let me in, and the door shut behind us with a soft click that sounded way too final. His apartment was cleaner than before. Not perfect. Caleb clean. A blanket folded wrong on the couch. 2 mugs in the sink. Mail stacked in a pile that probably had no system except denial. I stood near the kitchen, suddenly unsure what to do with my hands. We had spent years in each other's space. Dorm rooms, diners, cheap hotels on road trips, my couch, his couch. But this felt different because we had named it halfway. Caleb noticed. Of course he did. You were doing the careful thing again. I let out a breath. Yeah, I know. He leaned against the counter across from me. Close, but not too close. Like we had both agreed to stand on opposite sides of a line neither of us could see. I am not made of glass. I know that too. Then why do you look like you are about to apologize for being here? Because I wanted too much. Because I had wanted too much for longer than I was ready to admit. Because a month ago, he was calling me at 2:17 in the morning from his bedroom floor, and now he was looking at me like maybe he wanted me back, and I did not know how to make that safe. I do not want to mess this up, I finally said. Caleb's expression shifted. Mess what up? I gave him a look. Do not do that. His eyes dropped. Fair. The quiet stretched until the refrigerator hummed too loudly. Caleb rubbed both hands over his face, then laughed once under his breath. It sounded tired. Scared. I thought if you came over, it would be clearer. Is it? He looked at me then. No, the answer hit harder than I expected. I nodded, even though something inside me sank. Okay. No, Ethan. He stepped forward, then stopped himself. That tiny stop hurt more than if he had stayed still. That is not what I mean. But I was already filling in the blanks, because that was what I did best. Maybe he had gotten lonely. Maybe last night was just a bad night. Maybe real sounded different in daylight, with me standing in his kitchen and no phone line protecting us. You can take it back, I told him, trying to keep my voice even. Caleb frowned. What? What you said? About it feeling real. About not wanting normal. His face changed so fast my stomach dropped. You think I am taking it back? I think you were scared. I am scared. The words came out sharp, then broke softer. But not of you. I looked away first. Bad idea. My eyes landed on the couch, the same couch where his head had rested on my shoulder, where his pinky had touched mine like an accident neither of us believed. Caleb followed my gaze. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. I am scared because I do not know what is mine right now. My throat tightened. What does that mean? He folded his arms, not defensive exactly, more like holding himself together. My routine is a mess. My head is a mess. Half the time I cannot tell if I need you because I love being around you, or because you were the only person who showed up when I could not stand myself. I had no comeback. No joke. Nothing. Caleb swallowed, eyes shining but steady. And if I say yes to this, and later you think I only wanted you because I was broken, do not call yourself that. It came out before I could stop it. He blinked. I stepped closer without meaning to. You are not broken. His face softened, and for one dangerous second, I thought he might reach for me. Instead, he looked down at the floor. Then why do I feel like I could ruin the best thing I have? That did it. That sentence went straight through every selfish part of me and found the one part that loved him enough to stop. I took a slow breath and stepped back. Caleb noticed. His eyes flicked up, hurt flashing before he could hide it. Ethan, I am not leaving because I regret it. My voice sounded rough. I am leaving because I do not want you to feel cornered into choosing something tonight. His jaw tightened. I do not feel cornered. Maybe not. But you are scared, and I am scared, and if I stay right now, I am going to want answers you might not have yet. The honesty made the room go still. Caleb looked at me like I had just handed him something fragile and awful. I moved toward the door slowly, giving him every chance to stop me and hoping he would not, because I was not sure I could be noble twice. My hand touched the knob. Behind me, his voice came quiet. What if you leave and everything goes weird? I closed my eyes for half a second. Then we make it weird honestly. When I looked back, Caleb was standing in the middle of the kitchen, sleeves pulled over his hands, looking like he wanted to cross the room and did not trust himself to. I am not taking it back, he said. My heart kicked hard. Okay. I just need to know it is still true when I am better. I nodded, even though my chest hurt. Then get better. And ask me again. Caleb stared at me. Then, barely above a whisper, I will. I left before either of us could turn that promise into something we were not ready to hold. For 2 weeks, Caleb and I became painfully normal. That was the worst part. We texted about groceries, therapy appointments, a new show Mason kept bullying everyone into watching. I stopped by twice, but only for short visits, the kind where I stood near the door too much and Caleb made coffee he barely drank. We did not talk about the kitchen. We did not talk about him asking me to ask again when he was better. We acted like two men who had never almost changed their entire friendship under fluorescent lights. And honestly, I hated us for it. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon near Lake Michigan. Caleb had asked if I wanted to walk. which sounded casual until I saw him waiting by the path with his hands shoved in his jacket pockets, staring at the water like he had rehearsed something and hated every version. The wind was cold enough to turn his ears red. I walked up beside him. "You picked the most dramatic place possible." His mouth moved like he wanted to smile. I thought about doing it in a Target parking lot, but this had better lighting. Doing what? He looked at me then. Really looked. No joke ready. No escape route. My stomach dropped before he even answered. "Being honest." I nodded, even though my throat had gone tight. We started walking because standing still felt too dangerous. Shoes scraping gravel. Waves hitting the brake wall. A dog barking somewhere behind us. Normal sounds. Nothing about me felt normal. Caleb kept his eyes ahead. I am tired of pretending I do not remember what I said. My chest pulled tight. "I remember." "I know." He breathed out slowly. "That is why you have been acting like I am a bomb." I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. "You told me to ask again when you were better." "Yeah." His hand flexed inside his pocket. "And you took that very literally." I stopped walking. Caleb noticed after 2 steps and turned back. There were maybe 6 feet between us. Not much. Too much. "I was trying to do the right thing," I said. "I know. Do you?" My voice came out sharper than I meant. Caleb blinked, and I hated the hurt that crossed his face, but I could not pull the words back now. Because from my side, it feels like I am supposed to care about you enough to stay, but not enough to want anything. I am supposed to remember everything you said, but act like it did not matter unless you say it again first. And I am trying, Caleb. I am trying so hard not to make your recovery about me, but pretending this is easy is starting to make me insane. The wind moved between us. Caleb stared at me, quiet. For one terrifying second, I thought I had ruined it. Then he took a step closer. "I never wanted you to pretend it did not matter." "Then what did you want?" His jaw tightened. Not angry. Fighting himself. I wanted time to trust myself. My hands were cold, but my palms felt hot. And now, Caleb looked down at the path. A couple passed behind us, laughing about something, and we both went quiet until they were gone. When he looked back up, his eyes were steady. Scared, but steady. "Now I know I miss you even on good days." I stopped breathing. He moved closer again. 5 feet became 3. "I know therapy helps. I know sleep helps. I know eating actual meals helps, even when you are annoying about it." I let out a weak breath. "I am not annoying. You bought me a vegetable organizer. Your fridge was a crime scene." His almost smile faded into something softer. "And I know none of that feels like this." His hand came out of his pocket. Not reaching. Just there. Open. Honest. My eyes dropped to it, then back to his face. "Like what?" Caleb swallowed. "Like wanting you to stay because I love you there. Not because I need someone. Because I want you." The world got very quiet. Or maybe I did. I looked at him, and every excuse I had used for weeks fell apart at once. Best friend. Bad timing. Confusion. Caretaking. Gratitude. All those safe words. None of them fit the way he was standing in front of me. "Say something," he murmured. I stepped closer. Not all the way. Just enough that our shoes almost touched. "I was scared you would wake up one day and regret me." Caleb's face changed. "Ethan, I know. I know that sounds stupid." It does not. His fingers moved, barely, brushing the back of my hand. A small touch. Still enough to make my chest tighten. "I was scared you would think I only loved you because you saved me." I shook my head. "I did not save you. You showed up." "That is not the same thing." It was to me. I looked down at our hands. His knuckles were red from the cold. Mine were probably the same. Slowly, carefully, I turned my hand and let our fingers touch for real. Not an accident this time. Caleb stared at the space between us like he was afraid moving too fast would scare it away. "I am not asking you to fix everything," he said. "Good." My voice came out rough. "Because I cannot." "I know." His thumb brushed mine once. "I am asking if we can stop lying." I looked up. His eyes were on me, open in a way that made my chest ache. No big speech. No perfect timing. Just Caleb, cold and nervous by the lake, finally done pretending. I squeezed his hand. Once. Small. Real. "Yeah," I whispered. "We can stop lying." Caleb exhaled like he had been holding that breath for weeks. Then he stepped closer, and for once, neither of us stepped back. Caleb did not let go of my hand. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the lake, not the wind, not the people walking past us with coffee cups and dogs and normal Saturday plans. Just his hand in mine. cold fingers slowly warming between mine, and the fact that neither of us was pretending it happened by accident. We stood there for a while without saying anything. I kept waiting for my brain to panic, to search for the catch, to remind me of every reason this was complicated. Best friends, bad timing, depression, Mason's stupid jokes, the fear of losing something that had held both of us together for years. But Caleb's thumb moved once across my knuckle, and all that noise quieted down. Not gone, just quieter. "You are thinking too loud," he murmured. I looked at him. "That is not a real thing. It is when you do it." I huffed out a laugh, and his face softened like the sound mattered to him. That still scared me a little. Being mattered to by someone you loved was not as easy as people made it sound. It made you aware of your hands, your voice, the way one wrong word could bruise something new. But Caleb looked scared too, and somehow that helped. "What happens now?" he asked. No drama in it, just honest. I looked down at our hands. "We walk." His eyebrows pulled together. "That is your big plan." "For now." I squeezed his hand once. "We walk. Maybe get coffee. Maybe you eat something that is not toast. Then tomorrow, you go to therapy. I finish my overdue edit, and Mason probably sends us a meme that makes both of us want to move states." Caleb laughed. "A real one. Small, but there. Romantic. I am known for my sweeping gestures. You bought me a vegetable organizer, and you needed it." He smiled at the water, shaking his head. For the first time in weeks, the smile stayed. We started walking again, slower this time. Our shoulders bumped every few steps. At first, I thought maybe Caleb would pull his hand away when people passed. He did not. A runner moved around us. A woman with a golden retriever smiled in that polite Midwest way. Caleb's fingers tightened around mine, just barely, like he had felt the same fear and chosen not to obey it. That tiny squeeze did more to me than any big confession could have, because it was not a promise that everything would be easy. It was just him saying, "Right here, right now, I am not hiding from you." We got coffee from a cart near the path. Caleb ordered an actual breakfast sandwich, and I tried not to look too proud. He caught me anyway. "Do not make the face." "What face?" "The face like you personally invented eggs." "I am proud of eggs. They have done a lot for us." He rolled his eyes, but he was still holding my hand under the little metal table, our fingers linked between our knees where nobody else could really see. Not hidden, just ours. Later, we went back to his apartment. Not in that heavy, uncertain way from before. This time, I kicked off my shoes by the door, and Caleb tossed his jacket over the chair, and the place felt like the same apartment, but with the lights turned on inside it. He made coffee. I washed the 2 mugs in the sink. Routine. Familiar. Except when I reached for the towel, Caleb was already holding it out to me. Our eyes met, and we both smiled because we knew. Same small things. Different meaning. That night, Mason came over with takeout and zero emotional boundaries. He took one look at us sitting on the couch, shoulders touching, Caleb's hand resting openly over mine, and froze with a paper bag in his arms. "Oh." I braced myself. Caleb did not move his hand. "Yeah." Mason looked between us, then pointed at the bag. So supportive was the correct category. Caleb laughed under his breath. I felt his fingers tighten around mine. "Yeah," I answered. "Supportive works." Mason nodded slowly, trying and failing not to grin. "Cool. I brought dumplings for the emotionally married losers." "Do not ruin this," I warned. "I would never." He paused. "I absolutely will, but later." Caleb leaned closer to me on the couch, just enough that his shoulder pressed into mine. Not hiding, not performing either, just choosing. And maybe that was what I remember most. Not some perfect kiss in the rain, not a big speech. Just Caleb eating dumplings beside me while Mason complained about parking, his hand still in mine like it belonged there. Depression did not disappear because we loved each other. Life did not turn soft overnight. Caleb still had hard mornings. I still overthought everything. We still had to learn what we were without using friendship as a hiding place. But after that day by the lake, we stopped pretending normal meant untouched. Normal became coffee in his kitchen, therapy reminders, my laptop on his couch, his thumb brushing mine when he needed grounding, me staying, not because he was falling apart and not because I wanted to save him, but because I loved the life we were slowly building in the quiet spaces. A few weeks later, Caleb looked at me over breakfast, hair messy, hoodie sleeves over his hands, and asked, "So what are we now?" I smiled. because for once, I did not feel scared of the answer. Maybe we stop pretending we do not already know. He reached across the table and took my hand. And this time, there was no pause. No joke. No excuse. He just held on.